You know, that specific kind of exhaustion, the kind that comes from doing really good things. I was looking at a study on volunteer burnout, and it painted this pretty stark picture. We have more nonprofits, more church events, more social initiatives than, well, almost ever. If you look at a community calendar, it is just absolutely packed.
It is. It's a crowded marketplace of good intentions.
But here's the paradox, and this is what really hooked me into the material for today. Despite all that activity, the food drives, the Awareness Week's community transformation metrics are largely stagnant. We are busier than ever, but the needle isn't moving.
Yeah.
You look around a week after a big event, and it just feels like the water evaporated.
That's the core tension. The source material calls this high passion, low traction. It's the feeling of running on a treadmill. You're sweating, you're exhausting yourself, you're burning all these calories, but you aren't actually going anywhere. And for leaders, that is. It's incredibly demoralizing.
And that is exactly what we are unpacking in this deep dive. We have a stack of research, historical analysis, strategy playbooks, and they all circle around one concept: national mission campaigns. Now, I have to be honest, when I first saw that phrase, I immediately thought of, big, expensive, top-down programs.
Sounds like a government initiative.
Right. But the research here is arguing for the exact opposite. This is not about a bigger budget or finding some celebrity CEO to run things. It's about a structural shift. It's moving from what the text calls scattered excellence, where everyone is doing their own good thing in isolation.
To synchronize impact.
Scattered excellence. I mean, that's a great term. It admits that the individual work is good, it's excellent even.
Yeah.
It's just disconnected.
Precisely. And the mission for this deep dive is to figure out how you actually bridge that gap. How do you take 1,000 isolated efforts and, coordinate them into a movement? And the answer, according to these sources, involves everything from the theology of the Great Awakenings to modern digital analytics. It's a fascinating blend.
So let's start with the problem. The landscape. Because the source material makes a pretty aggressive claim. It says that the way we've been doing things, operating in silos, isn't just inefficient anymore. It's becoming obsolete.
It is, and that's largely due to the shift in the attention economy. The text points out that digital platforms have collapsed our boundaries. We are just constantly bombarded with noise. 20 years ago, a local nonprofit could put up a flyer and people would see it. Because what else was there? Today, if you are a standalone entity, you are basically invisible. You can't cut through the noise alone.
It's like trying to whisper in a stadium during a rock concert.
Exactly. And that leads to what the authors call the uncomfortable truth. I actually highlighted this section because it really challenges the typical narrative. They argue the reason we aren't seeing real change isn't a lack of commitment. We have plenty of committed people.
So it's not a lazy problem.
No, it's a coordination problem. The diagnosis is lack of synchronization.
So if the diagnosis is lack of coordination, then the prescription is what? Because trying to herd cats is hard enough. Trying to herd independent organizations with their own boards and budgets seems, impossible.
The sources suggest a total mindset shift for leaders. They need to stop thinking like event planners.
And start thinking like
ecosystem builders.
Okay, ecosystem builder sounds a little bit like corporate buzzword bingo. Let's unpack that. What does that actually look like on a Tuesday morning?
Fair point. Think of it this way. An event planner focuses on their specific production. The lights, the stage, the attendance for their Saturday. An ecosystem builder focuses on the infrastructure that allows others to produce. The analogy the text uses, which I think is brilliant, is water.
Okay, lay it out.
Right now, we have 1,000 streams. They're well-intentioned, but they're shallow and they flow in every direction.
And shallow water evaporates quickly when the heat turns up.
Exactly. An ecosystem builder tries to channel those streams into a single riverbank. They aren't trying to control every drop of water. They're building the banks so the water flows in one direction. Because a river has the force to actually reshape the landscape. A stream can't carve a canyon, but a river can.
So it's less about look what I'm doing and more about here is a framework we can all operate within.
Yes. And this requires a very difficult ego check. The text says we have to move from asking, what is God calling me to do? Which is very individualistic, to what is God calling us to become? It shifts the hero of the story from the individual leader to the collective.
That distinction, me versus us, that segues perfectly into the theological side of this, because I think a lot of listeners might be thinking, okay, this sounds like good management theory, but is it spiritual? And the source material argues that this collective thinking is actually more biblical than our modern individualism.
It's a strong argument. The text asserts that God thinks in nations. He thinks collectively. We tend to read the Bible as a series of personal self-help stories.
All right, David and Goliath is about me facing my giants.
But the source argues that's misreading. Look at the Abrahamic covenant in Genesis 12. God blesses Abraham, yes, but there's a "so that" attached. He is blessed so that all the families of the earth will be blessed. The unit of measurement was the nations he would impact.
The authors also bring up Nehemiah, which I found really interesting. Usually, Nehemiah is taught as a lesson in grit, building with a trowel in one hand and a sword in the other.
Right, the grind set interpretation. But the source points out Nehemiah was a master organizer. He didn't just stack bricks himself. He organized families. He synchronized their actions so each family built the section of the wall nearest their own home. It was a massive, decentralized coordination effort.
And if they hadn't synchronized, the wall never gets built.
Never, no matter how hard Nehemiah worked personally. And then you have the Great Commission itself. Make disciples of all nations. It's plural. The command presumes a community acting together.
There is one part of the theological foundation here that really surprised me, though. We're talking strategy, coordination, building rivers. But the source says the starting point for all of this isn't a whiteboard. It's holy lament.
That stopped me in my tracks, too. In the West, we are solution-oriented. We see a problem, we want to fix it. We want the 5-step plan. But the text argues that before you can fix the fragmentation, you have to grieve it.
Why? Why is that step necessary? Can't we just skip to the fixing?
Because if you don't grieve the brokenness, your motivation is just doing a project. Lament acknowledges the reality of the pain. It provides the emotional and spiritual fuel to sustain a long campaign. Without it, you're just running a program.
It reminds me of the history section on the Great Awakenings or the student volunteer movement. Those didn't start with a clever marketing slogan.
No, they started with groups of people deeply burdened, lamenting the state of their society. And that shared burden created a network. They moved together because they grieved together.
Okay, so we have the why, the fragmentation. We have the who, the collective. Now the how, because this is where the rubber meets the road. How do you get a nonprofit leader, a pastor, and a school principal on the same page without it turning into a committee meeting from hell?
The source material calls this the mechanics of alignment. And it begins with vision, but a vision that is simple without being shallow.
That's a tough balance.
It means it has to be transferable. Can a CEO and a 10-year-old both get it? But beyond the statement, the text emphasizes the power of symbols.
Symbols, like a logo.
Deeper than a logo, think. Visual anchors. The text points to biblical examples like the Ark of the Covenant. When the Israelites saw the Ark, they didn't need a memo. The symbol communicated identity, direction, presence instantly.
So in a modern context, that would be a banner,
Yeah.
a specific color.
It could be a lapel pin everyone wears, a banner that hangs in front of the church and the food bank and the school. It's a visual cue that says we are part of the same thing. When you drive through the city and see that symbol everywhere, you realize, oh, I'm part of something bigger than my building.
The text also makes a really interesting distinction here about language. It says we need to stop using contract language and start using covenant language. Is that just semantics?
No, it's fundamental. A contract is transactional. I will do X if you do Y. It's about protecting my rights. A covenant is relational. It says, I am committed to you in this mission regardless of the cost.
We are in this together.
Exactly. If you build a volunteer movement on contract language, it falls apart when things get hard. But if it's covenantal, if we are bound together to restore our city people, stick around, it changes the glue.
But here's the pushback I can hear. People hear national campaign, covenant, and they think, burnout. I'm already tired. I can't add a massive new commitment to my life.
And the source material anticipates that. In fact, it argues that a well-designed campaign should actually reduce burnout, not increase it.
How is that possible?
Yeah.
Adding work usually adds fatigue.
First, by avoiding what they call spectacle Christianity.
I love that phrase, spectacle Christianity.
It's the sugar rush, the big stadium event. It feels amazing for 3 hours, lights, fog machines. But on Monday morning, you crash. The source says, don't rely on the spectacle. Instead, use modular participation.
Modular participation. This is the part that I think makes this actually actionable.
It's the Lego block approach. Instead of saying everyone must do everything, you create tiers of engagement. You let people plug in where they fit.
Give me a concrete example. What do those tiers look like?
Sure. Let's say the campaign is about literacy in the city. Level 1 might be the individual module. This is low barrier. Pray for the schools at noon every day. Anyone can do that. Level 2 is the group module. A small group goes to read to kids at the library once a week. Level 3 is the institutional module. This is a school changing its curriculum for a week, or a business donating profits.
So if I'm a busy parent, I don't have to feel guilty. I can grab the individual module and still be part of the river.
Exactly. It removes the all or nothing binary that keeps people on the sidelines. It makes the movement scalable because it fits into the cracks of people's actual lives.
The text also talks about rhythms to prevent exhaustion, the action, reflection, renewal cycle.
This is vital. If you just have action, 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 you kill your volunteers. The source argues we need to mimic the biblical pattern of festivals and Sabbath. You have a season of action, an intense push. Then you stop.
Hard stop.
Hard stop. You have a season of reflection to debrief what worked, what didn't, and then crucially, a season of renewal where you rest.
It's almost like breathing. If you only exhale, only give out, you eventually pass out. You have to inhale.
Precisely. And building that rest into the calendar before the campaign starts is how you signal that you care about their souls, not just their labor.
I want to pivot now to the tools, because typically we talk about coordination, we end up talking about technology. But the source material uses this phrase, digital ecclesia.
Yeah, this is where it gets fascinating. Usually we use digital tools for marketing. Here's our event. Come to it. The source argues that digital tools shouldn't just be the billboard. They should be the infrastructure for spiritual formation.
Infrastructure for formation. What does that mean?
Think about the democratization of access. In the old model, you had to fly to a conference to hear a world-class speaker. With digital ecclesia, a rural pastor in a village of 50 people can access the exact same training at the exact same time as the leader of a megachurch in the capital city.
It levels the playing field.
Completely. And the analogy the source uses here is the Apostle Paul.
I love this comparison. Paul is the original remote worker.
In a way, Paul couldn't be physically present in Corinth, Ephesus, and Rome at the same time, so he wrote letters. Those letters were the technology of his day. They bridged the distance. They held the network together. Today, our letters are Zoom calls and apps and streaming.
And within this digital framework, the text pitches awareness weeks, but it calls them sacred time.
It's about interrupting the routine. If you want to change a culture, you have to disrupt the calendar. And Awareness Week synchronizes the nation's attention.
So it goes back to that river analogy. For 1 week, everyone is looking at the same thing.
Right. And even if your local contribution is small, knowing that 10,000 other people are doing the same thing at the same moment creates this massive sense of momentum. It moves from, I am doing a good deed, to we are shifting the atmosphere.
Okay, we've built the ecosystem, we have the vision, the digital tools, but how do we know if it worked? Because in my experience, nonprofits are obsessed with what the text calls vanity metrics.
Oh, the butts and seats metric.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Likes, views, attendance. The source is pretty savage here. It calls these trophies rather than testimonies.
It's a burn, but it's accurate. You can fill a stadium and have zero life change. The text proposes a new scorecard. It suggests we measure 3 things: faithfulness, fruit, and formation.
Break those down. Faithfulness sounds hard to measure on a spreadsheet.
It is, but it's crucial. Faithfulness asks, did we actually do what we said we would do? Fruit asks, are there tangible outcomes? Not just attendance, but are new mentorships happening? Did a policy change? And formation is the hardest one, it asks. Are the people participating actually growing? Are they more compassionate, more engaged than when they started?
That's the difference between breadth and depth.
Yes. Vanity metrics measure breadth. How wide was the reach? True impact measures depth. How deep did the roots go? A crowd is breadth. But a small group that starts a permanent service project in their neighborhood, that is depth. That's sustainable engagement.
So we're trying to move from a spike on a graph, the big event, to a new, higher baseline of engagement.
That's the goal. A program fills a calendar. A movement changes a culture. And you only get that change if you measure the things that actually matter.
This has been a massive download. We've gone from the frustration of scattered efforts to the theology of the collective we, through the mechanics of modular participation, and finally to a new way of measuring success.
It's a comprehensive playbook. It really takes away the excuse of we don't know how to work together.
But I want to leave the listener with the final challenge posed by the text. And it's a provocative one. The authors argue that we actually know how to do this. The technology exists. History proves it works. The theology supports it.
So the bottleneck isn't capability.
No. The bottleneck is leadership. The real question isn't, does this work?
Yeah.
The real question is, are leaders willing to surrender their autonomy? Are they willing to break down their silos and step into the kind of coordinated, shared submission this moment demands?
That is the hard part. It is infinitely easier to be the captain of your own small boat than to be one ship in a coordinated fleet. You lose control. You lose the spotlight. You have to submit to a vision that isn't entirely yours.
But as this source reminds us, the fleet is what changes the world. The river is what carves the canyon.
It is. And if we want to see the change we talk about, we have to build the river.
Something to chew on before you plan your next event. Thanks for diving in with us.
Always a pleasure.